Hey everybody, this is Kodak here, and today we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this because I made this in which I talk about this, specifically the problems caused by this. However, it came out recently that these guys who make this recently announced that this was going to get changed into this, and people are asking me my thoughts on it. So, a broader term of what I just went through right there. So there's a game called Card Fight Vanguard. I did a joke about it that I named it after a villainous character from a franchise that I'm not going to make jokes using anymore. Where it's a game that has a problem with how its attributes are handled. Now, attributes are things like card color or like Pokemon type. Those are things that have like a hard and fast rule attached to them. Most games have like 5 or 6, and Vanguard had 24. Not only did they have 24, but you are not allowed to mix and match any of those 24. And because they have so many attributes, they had to divide their product up amongst multiple product. It means they've had to churn out a ton of product. Like basically they put out like a new product every month, at least one every month, sometimes even more, in order to make sure that there are no droughts on any of these unmixable clans. However, that was recently changed by the announcement of Vanguard Overdress, where they are going from 24 attributes, or 27, depending on who you believe, down to 6. To I guess, be more in line with a lot of things. Specifically, it is there because the problem I mentioned was that by having so many diverse clans, and by only being able to include like 4 out of the 24 in each set, they risk making a product that only a small amount of their fan base will want. And, a lot of people are saying, oh, Kodak pointed this out, and now Bushiroad is changing their business model. Coincidence? Yes! Yes, it is very, very much a complete and utter coincidence. I guarantee that, because in that video, I don't really discuss anything that isn't some kind of big secret. I didn't stumble across some amazing discovery or anything. What I brought up in that episode is really already known to be a problem with Vanguard. It's been a known problem for a long time, particularly if you are on the sales side of things. Like, I built that episode by going and talking to a bunch of local game stores, and I asked them to say, hey, why don't you carry Vanguard anymore? And they're like, well, they kept sending us so much product and people weren't really buying it, so we stopped. So like I said, that was the basis for my statement, is because, they put out a product, it's like nobody in their store who played Vanguard wanted it because it didn't contain the clans they wanted, and so they would have to, like, severely discount it. Like a lot of Vanguard product was hit with, like, really steep discounts pretty quickly. Like this playmat I have, I paid $5 for it. That's cheap for a playmat, let alone like a special, like, I think this is actually like a special release edition playmat, so I guess nobody showed up for that release. And another thing, I am positive it has nothing to do with me, because I do not like Bushiroad, and Bushiroad is keenly aware that I do not like them. I have met their CEO, and I have the receipts to prove it. I mean, unless I don't expect Bushiroad to listen to me. In fact, I would be astonished if they did. I was using Vanguard as an example. I was not giving Bushiroad advice. I was just showing the effects of what these designs can do. I mean, if Bushiroad puts out a statement that says, oh yeah, we changed our multi-million-dollar business model because of the words of some fat schlub on YouTube, then maybe I'll admit that I had something to do with it, but no, like I said, it's stuff that people know about. It's something that's been established for a while. Now, the thing is, the changes they're making are perhaps not as earth-shaking as it might come across, because all of these clans were already divvied up into 6 nations. Like my Oracle think tank here, it's in the same nation as like the Royal Paladins and Angel Feather and all of those. Those are all from the same nation, and basically what they've done is they've made it so that it's no longer unmixable by clan, but it is instead unmixable by nation. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised it's not what they did at first. Vanguard was a game that had a unique set of growing pains. At the beginning, you could freely mix and match all of the cards, with the caveat being that a trigger effect will not work if your Vanguard is not the same clan as that trigger unit. However, people were still finding super broken combos, so at first they made it kind of an unwritten, enforced rule. Like a lot of my old cards here still mention that it has to be like a specific like its effects only work with other Oracle Think Tank cards. I have the Monaka here, which only works like that. So they made it a soft rule, then they converted it to a hard rule. You could only run cards of your own clan, with maybe a couple of exceptions here and there, but that was made to cause a limitation, and it seems to have caused some stagnation. Like I mentioned, the issue with the unmixable attributes and how that can cause some clans to suffer severe droughts where they just don't get anything interesting for a long time. And I imagine that caused a bit of a drop in interest. I don't think they would do something this drastic if they didn't think it was the right thing to do. Like this seems a bit desperate to me, making a change this major, or it could be exactly what they want, or exactly what they want to do, exactly what they need to do. I guess the theories I present in that video are at the very least going to receive a stress test, but I don't think it's going to be as severe as it might seem from the outset. I imagine we're still going to see like a lot of the archetypes that feel like the old clans. Like I have my Oracle Think Tank deck here. It's like generally an Oracle Think Tank deck, but it's specifically a Battle Sister deck where you have cards that respond to specifically Battle Sister type cards. So I imagine we're still going to see like the Oracle Think Tank archetype, the Gear Chronicle archetype, the Royal Paladin archetype. We're still going to see cards that do that very specific kind of thing. It's still going to feel similar, but there's going to be more flexibility. For example, I have a card here, Weather Forecaster Miss Mint. This is a card, if I remember correctly, was really, really good for a really long time, particularly involving Legion decks, because Miss Mint is basically a free Sentinel that not only does not require an additional cost, but also does not count against your Sentinel limit, but it does that effect for any level 2 attacker, and Legions are level 3 as well as level 2. So it was a good card for a really long time. But for example, if you run a Gear Chronicle deck, the Gear Chronicle archetype, which is a purple theme, if the Gear, whatever the Gear Chronicle archetype I'm sure is going to be, and a set comes out that supports the Spike Brothers archetype, which is also purple, that might not interest you, except but maybe the set contains a Spike Brothers version of Weather Forecaster Miss Mint that works with any purple deck. That might catch your interest. The goal of this move is to make it easier for Bushiroad to create a product that appeals to as much of their audience as possible. By only being able to use 1/6 of their clans in each of their major sets, that meant they made something that appealed to maybe 1/6, maybe generously a fourth, a third, maybe half of their audience. But this way, they can include cards that support all 5 or 6 nations. I know it's at least 5 or 6. I don't know if one of them is like a universal element. They depict 6, but they talk about how the clans get condensed into 5. It's a bit weird, but I imagine it's to make sure that they can put out a product that appeals to all of their players, or at the very least like 80-90% of them with every product that they roll out. I imagine we're still going to see like the special boosters that focus on individual colors, individual nations, I believe is what they're called. They're not clans, they're nations now, because the clans have united into the nations. But it means that you can have more staple cards that appeal to more clans, more attributes. You can have cards that can be edge cases. It'll be a lot easier to get things like the perfect guards and the trigger units, although like I said, there will probably still be like archetype specific cards in there. That's what I assume they're going for, is to make it so that their product appeals to to a broader audience. They won't have to churn out as much. They can focus on quality over quantity. And there was another issue. Another thing that people talked about is normally Vanguard decks are between like 15 to 20 bucks. I know they standardize around 18, but one of these new moves is the starter decks are now going to be $4, which makes them roughly the cost of a booster pack. And people are talking about, oh wow, that's amazing, it's lowering the cost of entry. It's also generally following an industry trend. Like other games have already been doing this. Like, we have WeCross here. We have one of the newer WeCross decks. Like, I showed off an older WeCross starter deck, which had a a box that was shaped like a DVD case. It was big and broad and had like 2 windows with foil cards in them. This is the total opposite. It's now just a plain old card box with a bunch of cards and a kind of toilet paper mat inside. I think I might do a video about this, even though this is it's Piraluk, which is one of the characters from the original run. It's an updated deck with this same character, although they kind of want to limit their characters because, like with Vanguard, there are certain cards that work with certain characters, but they're maintaining it. And Digimon too. These starter decks for Digimon are $5, 500 yen. So really, by dropping the cost of these decks, they're just kind of falling in line with what other industry standards are doing. Although I must say, it's quite interesting that in Japan, of all places, lowering the cost of entry to increase accessibility is not the thing I was expecting. It's not the trend I was expecting trading card games to go over there. Of course, it means that the starter decks we're getting are probably not going to be as high quality. It's probably not going to contain foil cards. It's probably going to have a lot of 2-ofs, maybe even 1-ofs. Like this Wii-Cross deck doesn't contain any foil cards. And this one does, despite being 500 yen. And I know, haha, funny joke, in America we pay literally twice the price for the same thing. But at least the American deck includes a booster pack to take the edge off. Not to mention, Bushiroad kind of seems to be, flailing around a whole lot. Like, they have the game Weiss Schwarz, which is basically an anime-themed thing, but they actually have, like, a number of mega license games, super license games that I've talked about. Like they put out this one called Rebirth for You. I showed this deck off in another video. It's like the only Hololive merch I can get as somebody who doesn't live in Japan. But it's another thing similar to Weiss Schwarz, where it's a super licensed game. They have another one that I can't remember. Is that Chaos or whatever it might be called? They also tried to make a game that I think they were trying to push as like maybe like a sequel or a replacement to Vanguard called Luck and Logic. It had like the TV show, it had all the cool stuff, the anime artwork meant to appeal to teenagers, but it failed hard. It lasted 1 year in the United States. It lasted 2 in Japan. It was another victim of the 2-year curse. It doesn't help that the second set they put out was a pretty severe flop. So yeah, they had a lot of struggling with this. Of course, Future Card Buddy Fight bit the dust earlier back last year. So they're in a bit of a tight spot. I imagine that's why they're trying to increase accessibility to their game. And I'm always a fan of increased accessibility. However, I am still not a fan of Bushiroad. The reasons I don't like Bushiroad games is not just the fact that their product was really onerous and difficult to deal with. My reason for not liking Bushiroad is a lot more visceral. Some people might remember a video I made a long time ago that I took down because I don't want to be known as the guy who yells at card games, but yeah, that's the thing about Vanguard Overdress. A lot of people have been talking to me about this because I think it was kind of a wake-up call because, the Vanguard fans also know that I don't like Bushiroad. So they naturally chafed against everything I said in the Unmixable Attributes episode, and now, boom, it's happened. So all of this has gone on. So yeah, that's about all I have to say about it. Still working on that Duel Masters episode. Got a lot of fun stuff coming in the pipeline, and until next time, this is Kodak signing off.